Hey there, I am back with another Free the Pip Friday where we open up some of the rarest decks out there. And for this one, we're going to be looking at Damask from Oath playing cards. Now, Damask is the second in a trio of mystery decks from designer Lotrek, decks that were ordered sight unseen by trusting fans. And for their faith, supporters were rewarded with one of the most impressive technical decks that you'll ever see. Lotrek is well known for pushing the boundaries of production with his decks, playing with foils and technique that no one else in playing cards is doing. But even amid his impressive catalog, Damask really stands out as one of the most striking and as a result, most desirable. In fact, the decks that you see here can fetch upwards of $900 for the pair, and that's if you can even find them. As for how I got mine, well, I didn't. I want to give a big shout out to Kavork, who loaned me his copies of Damask so that I could check him out on the channel. He's a fantastic Lotrek collector. Recommend checking him out on Instagram if you're not already connected with him. Really just has an amazing collection, and appreciate him sending me these decks to share with you guys. The decks themselves are inspired by the classic Damask patterns. Originally, Damask wasn't even a pattern though, instead referring to a rare and luxurious hand-woven fabric from China that used differences in the sheen of the material to reflect light differently and produce these sort of rich variations in tone of the fabric. The technique made its way across the Silk Road into Europe by the 14th century, where over the next several hundred years, the art continued to evolve, incorporating the sort of scrolling and ornate patterns that we associate with Damask today. I personally associate Damask more with the Victorian era, which kind of makes sense because technology advancements around that time really helped the technique become more automated and accessible to everybody. And that's the inspiration that Lotrek drew on to produce this deck. And it was really just a canvas for his own experimentation with foiling on cards. So let's jump into it and see how he did. There's two versions of the deck. The red one over here was released first and is limited to just 400 decks. And then it was followed later by the even rarer blue edition. This one has just 120 decks in existence. But let's start off by looking at the red version. The tuck box is done on a black kind of soft touch cardstock. You can see the bits of black peeking out here. And then it's covered with red and gold foil, a nice mirror finish, very reflective red foil, and then accents of the gold. Beautiful Damask pattern in the back is done with very heavy embossing, gives a nice texture to the deck. And then the red in the negative space gives you just fantastic contrast. You get the band down the center with Damask, and then the little accent of a gold spade pip there at the top as well. That pattern wraps its way all the way around the tuck box, giving you a nice shiny and impactful design to this one. Only part that's not Damask is here at the bottom with the ad copy, where you can see that it's hand numbered out of the 400 deck edition. As you open it up, you can see the soft touch black cardstock, the actual core color of the tuck box, and then nothing on the inner flaps. But on the reverse side here, you can see the reverse of the embossing. Gives you an idea of just how deep that emboss is on the tuck box. Beautiful tuck box, but let's get to the cards. And the first thing you may have noticed are these edges. And it almost looks like painted edges to the deck, that matte painted finish with the red here. But that's actually the color of the card stock itself. So the stock in this one uses a red stock rather than your classic white or a black core stock or something like that. This one all red and gives the illusion of a painted edge. Very cool, the effect that you get. And because of the foiling that's used on the deck, you almost get this kind of shimmery vibe as you tilt it slightly. It's a really cool effect done completely without gilding, which I really like. But let's see the back design of these. And the foil work continues on these. The back design is edge to edge foil, and it's done in multiple colors and textures, much like Damask, to kind of give the impression of more vibrant colors just with the variations in sheen here. You get the darker red foil, the bright red foil, the same that we saw in the tuck box, and then this kind of matte, almost pink foil here. The trio of colors really gives it some depth, especially when you hit it just right in the light. Great contrast on this one, despite the fact that it's all shades of red. Now, I will say I could have done with even a little bit more contrast, but when you get it in the right light and the dark parts look darker, it's a really beautiful effect. All done in those red, and then the Damask pattern all the way through, those flourishes and vine work kind of working its way through. And the card is all hot stamped, which almost gives the impression of an embossed card. You can see almost like texture here on the card. It's a very unique effect and something that just makes this card feel different in hand than anything I've ever felt. Now, backs of the cards, not the only thing that's foiled. The faces are fully foiled as well, as you can see as we look at the two jokers here. So you get a black and a red joker, but most of the card is done in that gold foil. And the most striking part here are the borders. The borders done with that damask pattern in the two shades of gold, the matte and the shiny gold combining to give you a great effect on the edges. Looks very cool, although when you hit it in the wrong light, the joker in the corner can be a little bit harder to read, but get it just right and everything pops really nicely. And then the image in the center, this character here, almost like an architectural element, like a gargoyle that you'd see on a building. You've got the column work or those flourishes coming out of the head there. The black joker with him asleep, and then him startled awake on the red joker. Kind of cool little art piece. I would have preferred maybe a larger image here in the center, but cool little pair of jokers. And again, fantastic, unique use of foil on this. Ace of Spades is the one power ace, has Damask and Oath playing cards on it. And then mixing in with all that gold foil, which again makes an appearance, you have the red, two shades of red here, kind of a very, very dark, almost black, and then the bright accents of red as well. I gotta admit, you know, especially in hand, it can be a little bit hard to pick out some of the details on this, but when you take the time to look at it really closely, it is a fantastic piece of art and impressive foiling on this one. Combining those red foils, the black and gold kind of crosshatch pattern here in the background, and then of course that damask border around it. It's just a great effect and just really impressive use of foil yet again. Pip and index here in the corner, done almost in negative space. So you get that very dark color and then a super ornate kind of calligraphy index there in the corner. Fairly classically shaped pipped, a little bit of customization to them. Number cards do feature customization as well. Of course, you get that border in the background again, and then these two-tone kind of split spade pips here in the middle. So one half of it done in that matte gold foil and the other half left dark. I like the effect of it. It's simple. Lotrek uses this style of pip on a lot of his different cards, and I think it works really well. So other three aces, not nearly as custom, just feature that split pip there in the center. Red cards, instead of that almost black color, now go, of course, with a brighter kind of pinkish red color for these. Again, really impressive look, just a great feel of luxury with that level of foil on these. There's your clubs, back to the black, and then into your hearts. Now, one thing I will call out on these as you're going through, you may have noticed a little bit of it, because of the technique used for the stamping and because it's hot stamping, occasionally you'll get a little bit of the texture of the back that's kind of popping through. So there's little, I don't know, deformations that you'll see on here. That's actually the hot stamping because it's so heavy on the backs of the cards that it actually comes through to the fronts. It's unfortunate. You see it occasionally with hot stamping. USPCC in particular can be pretty bad about it, and I think it's a little bit distracting, but there's so much foil on these that, I don't know, there's plenty to look at even with that stamping. Here you can see it particularly here, almost like a discoloration on there. And then we get into the quartz. Now for the quartz, Lotrek kept it, I'll say, relatively standard. Obviously you get tons of foil on these, but the style of the quartz definitely uses as its basis the classic bicycle quartz. And so they're going to be familiar and yet ornate at the same time. And for this one, amps up the foil even more. So not just the gold foil, not just the red, but then mixing in blues and even a little bit of silver here. Multiple colors of foil on these to give you a very bright, dynamic, and honestly almost busy look to the court cards. A lot going on with these. In particular, interesting and kind of stands out are the pale pink faces that he chose on these. So going with the red damask theme, almost reddened the faces on these. I don't particularly like the color used for the faces. I find that a little bit distracting, but the foil work, again, super impressive, even if it is almost too much going on with the court cards. So you can appreciate the technique, even if the artwork on these isn't my favorite that Lotrek's ever done. And honestly, for me, I'm pretty predisposed to more custom quartz, and so I'll always, not have as much appreciation for standard quartz. But as standard quartz go, you can't get more impressive than what you see here. Foil work super clean, and particularly if you look at areas like the crowns here, the headwear, you can see the super ornate detail that he's able to achieve with really not much loss in the detail despite the hot stamping. So there are your court cards, and that is the red Damask deck. Now, as far as handling, don't expect much from these with the texturing on these, the foil stamping, and Lotrek in general, not known for handling. These are not going to be the smoothest deck in the world, which is a shame because I think that Damask pattern would have looked fantastic in a fan. You can kind of get a sense of it when I spread it out there. But beautiful deck and really just an interesting technical deck. But that's just one of the two versions. We also have the blue version of the deck, which features a lot of the same artwork, but this time swapping the red foil out for a bright, vibrant blue, almost aqua colored foil. I love the color choice on this one. The blues and the blacks pair very well together. The gold doesn't stand out quite as much with the lighter color, but still impressive nonetheless. And as mentioned up front, these are numbered out of just 120. So 400 for the red and 120 for the blue. And of course, the cards themselves are going to get, a bit of a color change as well. In particular, the back designs I love on these, even more so than the red deck. The blues on here, I think, show beautifully the pearlescent blue kind of effect that you get here on the matte color, the bright vibrant blues, and then using black to give you super nice contrast on the cards themselves. Beautiful pattern on these, and I think the contrast on these just helps the blue one stand out even more than the red. The faces also swap some of the colors as well, so instead of black and red, we're now going with black and blue colors on these. And again, the blue color I think looks fantastic. Something about the blue just contrasts a little bit better. So the black cards are still black, so very similar to what we saw before. Blue cards now use the blue instead of the red. And a little bit of an upgrade on the court cards as well in my mind. The blue colors instead of those kind of pale pink colors. So the skin here done in blue. I still find it a little bit distracting. Would have preferred, I don't know what I would have preferred, but the blue is a little bit distracting, but I do like it a little bit better than the pale pink that was used on those. Great colors, kind of has a darker vibe to the whole deck somehow. Almost like they're, I don't know, some sort of dark elf species or something like that. But I really, really like the blue deck. Of the two, that's got to be my favorite. Just the bright colors on this one. Still makes heavy use of that gold foil. And the stock on these is done in a black stock, which gives kind of a dark, I don't know, a little bit blue, kind of a little bit blue, a little bit gold, a little bit black to the edges here, as you see bits of that foil peeking through. Overall, both decks I think are beautiful. Obviously, not the easiest decks in the world to get a hold of, but if you have a chance to collect these, it is a technical achievement like no other with Damask. So highly recommend if you get the opportunity, if it's in your budget, go check these decks out, or if you can ever just get your hands on them to just play around with them in person, it is well worth the time. So anyway, hope you enjoyed this one, Damask for Free the Pip Friday. I definitely did, and want to give another big thanks to Kavork for loaning me these decks. Just incredibly happy that I had the chance to check them out. But that's it for now. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure to subscribe for more deck reviews, more unboxings, and of course, more Free the Pip Friday. That's it, and I'll see you for the next one.